The major part of it is really underneath the surface. That is, the person feels fear, shame, guilt, tension. He's always worried about what might happen. He might get into a situation, not be able to say his name, or the telephone rings and he can't answer it. And in this way, stuttering is like an iceberg. The part that you see is really the smaller part. The larger part to the stutterer himself is all the emotional load that he has to carry along with him at all times. So that we can't say, really, that there is a single unitary cause of stuttering. There seem to be different routes to becoming a stutterer, and possibly different routes toward recovery also. One of the interesting things about stuttering is that the stutterer speaks fluently most of the time. And he is most likely to stutter when he has something important to say to someone who is important. That is, you are more likely to stutter in crucial situations and when you're communicating a lot, when there's a lot of emotional loading to what you're saying. If a situation doesn't matter very much, or if you're not really communicating, or if there's some distraction present, then you can often speak quite easily. For example, most, not all, but most stutterers can sing quite fluently. And the stutterer can develop tensions, and he begins to force and struggle. And this forcing and struggling seems to lead to a vicious circle, that the stutterer tries very hard to keep from stuttering. And in those situations in which he tries hard to keep from stuttering, he's most likely to stutter. Stuttering is something in a way that you do because you try hard to keep from doing it. It's a classic kind of vicious circle. The stutterer, though, has the feeling that he must speak perfectly, and so he's constantly straining not to stutter, and this is a big source of problem for the stutterer.
What about cures? Are there any quick cures?
There are no quick cures, although the variation of stuttering tempts some stutterers to hope that he can get a magic release by next Tuesday. He'll be speaking as a silver-tongued orator. Sometimes the stutterer can feel like a giant in chains. That is, the stuttering becomes a peg on which to hang all his shortcomings, and if only he could get rid of that problem, then everything else would be fine. It's like the stutterer who felt that he wasn't popular because he stuttered. He got over it, and he found his friends didn't like him anyway. Stuttering is a status gap problem. You stutter depending on your own perceived status compared to that of the listener. If I were talking up to you, I would have more trouble. The average stutterer, the average child who begins to stutter, is speaking upward all the time. In practically everybody in his environment has more authority than he has, and status, authority is often shown in a vertical dimension. To have to speak up to an authority figure is a very difficult problem for stutterers, and there are no shortcuts. It's a problem that takes a while to develop. It's a problem that makes its onset in early childhood, and it takes a while for the treatment. We have discovered that the spontaneous recoveries, those that occur without treatment, and also the recoveries that occur with treatment, take time. It takes time to change if you're making very fundamental changes in the self. And this is one of the ways that stuttering builds up and develops. There's a learned behavior aspect of stuttering. There's a habit part as well as the attitude part that we've been talking about. You can't spend the rest of your life being somebody else. You have to become yourself. And in therapy, we try to study these false roles and help the stutterer to reject them and to be himself and to learn to speak more easily and indeed to stutter more easily as himself. Sometimes it's useful for the stutterer to stutter on purpose or to stutter in an easier way. There are a lot of different ways of stuttering, a lot of different styles, and you can adopt a role as which is based upon an acceptance of yourself, which also involves stuttering very easily. For instance, on the word stuttering. I stuttered on that word just then. At one time, I would have grimaced and did some of the things that the people you saw earlier were doing. But I still stutter. I think of myself as a stutterer, but I am very comfortable and self-accepting in it. I think every stutterer has to work out his own acceptance of self and has to pick from the smorgasbord of what we offer in therapy a way of being himself and being a stutterer to the extent that he still is one, and speaking comfortably and stuttering comfortably and being open, and to reject all the false role-playing, because stuttering is in many ways a false role disorder. Without the false roles, you don't have much left to stutter about.